Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we have a very special guest joining us. Let me introduce you all to Sam Struan. Sam Struan has been a recruiter and resume specialist for over 10 years. I personally worked with Sam to rebuild my resume and was blown away by the quality of his work. Now, I received multiple requests from all of you to talk more about resumes, so I had a discussion with Sam to feature him on the channel so he can share his knowledge and his expertise with all of you for free. Sam, welcome to the channel.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, Sam, why don't we get started with the first question? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as Noman mentioned, I have been in the recruitment industry and the resume writing business for since 2013, so for quite a while now. And nowadays, I spend most of my time helping individuals improve their resumes and also help them negotiate higher salaries.
That's amazing to hear, Sam. So, can you tell our viewers what motivated this shift into the recruitment and resume writing industry?
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to recruitment, I actually fell into the recruitment industry, which most individuals do. My first professional 9 to 5 job was a reception slash admin position in a recruitment agency. And what I did was I took the time to learn as much as I could from the recruiters around me and decided that I really wanted to pursue a role in the organization. So I did what I can to learn from other recruiters. And then when it came to resume writing, after a few years in the industry, and having seen so many resumes at that time, I would informally get asked for resume support from friends, family members, and that eventually evolved into working with clients. And that's probably the majority of the work that I do now is resume reviews and revisions and rewrites.
Wow, that's quite a journey, Sam. Now, to get this interview rolling, I think the first question that I want to ask you, it's a personal question of mine as well, is what is the ideal length of a resume? I've heard that, one page is considered to be the ideal length of a resume, but then I've also heard from recruiters just like you who say that the page length does not matter as much. What is your take on this situation? And more importantly, are there conditions where a resume should not be longer than a page?
Great question. I would say that there are some general guidelines when it comes to resume length. If you're a new graduate or you've had one job, a one-page resume is fine. But for the most part, anyone with, more than 3 years experience is probably going to lean into a two-page resume. And in my case, where I've had almost 15 years of experience, I have 3 pages in my resume. Ultimately, what I would say is content matters more than length of the resume. So you're going to come up with many people, recruiters as well, who say a resume should be no more than 1 page or no more than 2 pages. Ultimately, if a recruiter is tasked with hiring for a position, they see a good candidate, an extra page or two isn't going to kill the opportunity because the recruiter is being tasked with screening good candidates based on their experience, not an extra page or two in the resume. So as long as your content is good, 1 to 3 pages, you're generally in the safe zone. An example of a longer resume or CV would be a medical or academic CV. Those are typically longer because they have a long list of publications, and that is generally accepted in the industry. So I would say within 1 to 3 pages, depending on the years of experience that you have, you're generally in the safe zone.
Thank you for that response, Sam, and I hope all the viewers are taking notes because that is actually priceless advice. Now, Sam, this discussion leads me to my next question, which is about cover letters. Now, there is debate all over the internet where some people say a cover letter is extremely important, and then some people say, well, cover letters are archaic and we should get rid of them. What is your take on this situation?
When it comes to cover letters, if there is an option to upload one, then I do kind of recommend just put one together quickly, just that it looks tidy enough, but don't spend an hour creating this long cover letter, tweaking every single, sentence. Just put something just so you can upload it as part of the application. The exception to that is if you think that the role will require you to correspond with the public in a formal manner. For example, a government position. Government officials or individuals often have to correspond with the public through letters. Now, when you're representing the government in writing, then it's important that you do display that you have good writing skills when it comes to formal letters. In that situation, I would recommend spending a bit of time. So I don't feel like I'm the authority on cover letters simply because I never asked for them when I recruited. But those are kind of my general guidelines, is that if it's optional, just whip one up together. But whip one up. If they're going to if that skill is going to be a big part of the role, then spend a bit more time doing it.
Thank you for sharing your insight on cover letters, Sam. Now, we've already talked about resumes, we've talked about cover letters. Do you think you could give us a rundown of what a good resume looks like? I am hoping you can talk about the formatting, the layout, and the wording.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to show. So I'm going to just share screen here and show you an example of my own resume. Generally, what I've found when it comes to most resumes, or I like to call it a six-figure resume, you only really need 5 main sections. And those main sections are as follows. You need contact details. Okay, this is what's going to be parsed into an applicant tracking system, is standard. And generally, your current location, email, phone number, and LinkedIn URL, that is sufficient. What I personally recommend is a short summary section, which highlights the most relevant experiences depending on the job. This is the only section that I tweak and tailor when it comes to applying for roles. I don't change the whole resume. I just change the small section with the most relevant experiences. I also like to just kind of sum up the entire resume in one sentence. I do that very succinctly and objectively. So you've got those two sections where you've got the contact, you've got the summary, you've got the kind of professional experience section. So the company that you worked for, the title that you held, the location where you performed the work, and obviously the dates that you held that role. I also like to advise including a short company summary, 1 to 3 lines that just give a quick snapshot, what the business does, how many employees, their revenue or their operating budget or their fundraising, and the scope. Okay, are they North America only or are they international? So giving a snapshot about the business. And then the actual bullet points, impactful, measurable metrics. Education is required for some roles, but not all. I have hired people, with 20 years of experience who don't have a degree. I've hired those individuals because, I think I personally find experience more important than a degree from 20 years ago. The exception to that, obviously, is in regulated industries, engineering, medical positions. They're going to require some form of education certificate or designation. So that's where it would be helpful to include those. But a resume just needs to be simple, straightforward, and clear.
Sam, there's something I want to pick your brain on. You mentioned that a resume should be measurable. Can you clarify what it means to be measurable on a resume?
Sure thing. You'll see a lot of advice online that it's important to quantify and have results in your resume. But that's oftentimes the most difficult part when it comes to working with an individual, is they struggle to come up with metrics. And there often isn't a template or something, of a formula that individuals can use and apply to their own resume. So what I like to do with most of my clients is apply something called time, money, team, and scope. All of these things are applicable to any role at any level at any industry. So here's some examples. So time would refer to what time frame did you do something? I reduced time to hire by 12 days. That's one measure of time, by reducing something, the time it takes to do something. Another is just kind of mentioning, I could say that I recruited over 500 clinical and non-clinical staff, but I'm going to do it in under 2 years. Easy metric, but also objectively kind of indicates your level of experience or what you accomplished in that. Moving on to money, obviously, money is a very common one, but a lot of people think, my role, I'm an admin assistant, I don't generate revenue. But an admin assistant might support 4 executives, and those executives might support a $50 million business. And that's important for an individual to clarify that they're not just, aware of their role, they're aware of how their role feeds into a wider business. So I always think about money made money managed, or money saved. There's different ways to quantify revenue or financial aspects about your role. Team is talking about your immediate team size. You know, whether someone was one HR person or one of 50 HR individuals is really important to give that size and structure. Team might also be clients, though. Team might also be who you worked with on a particular project. So it doesn't, have to be your immediate team. There's always different ways of quantifying the team. Also, scope. A business, a local bakery might only serve a small town. But an international food organization that is manufacturing in 4 different countries, you're talking about a much wider market. So scope's often something that people miss out on the resume. A marketing agency in one city is very different to a global marketing organization. So it's really important to include these. So I always think about time, money, team, and scope.
Sam, thank you for sharing all of that information. That's like really, really valuable. There's something I noticed when you were talking about resumes, and it's the design of your resume that stood out to me. It's extremely plain, clean, and simple. Whereas, I've seen people spend hours, if not days, designing resumes with colors and styles and whatnot. Is this a personal preference, or is this something you recommend professionally?
Yeah, I would say both. And I'm going to show you pretty much my exact resume. So that kind of template that I was on earlier, that was based on this exact resume. And I mentioned to you earlier that my resume is 3 pages long, and I've still managed to land interviews using this. So I know from personal experience, a 3rd page in my resume is not costing me opportunities. And if it did, I would argue that it's not a good reason to disqualify a candidate. I do recommend simple, clean, but well formatted. And also, what are the most widely read things in the world? They're books. And books generally are very clean, simple, and easy to read. So I think about, when I'm writing a resume, I want it to be easy, simple to read. And I have a really good data point for that. So this is what I recommend. And this template, this format, is available to download for free on my website.
Wow, Sam, I love that book analogy, and I think it puts into perspective of how a resume is perceived. Now, there's a question that I want to ask you. We've already learned what a good resume should include, how it needs to be measurable. And, I've read this on the internet that, recruiters tend to look at a resume for like 5 seconds before they discard it. What is something that stands out to a recruiter in a good resume that would make them want to read the whole thing? Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, great question. I would say that the time that a recruiter spends on a resume is up for debate. I don't know, I don't know where those 5, 6, 7 seconds comes from, but when a recruiter is dealing with hundreds, if not thousands of applicants, you do have a short time to capture someone's attention. Generally, I would say that recruiters scan for 8 main things in a resume, or if they were to kind of do a kind of heat map of where eyes go to, I would say it's these things. And this is just a post on LinkedIn. Like, I post regularly, so anyone's welcome to follow and kind of look for this. Like, I post a lot of stuff for free. But if I were to do a reasonable guess on what the average recruiter might skim for, they look for location. I want to know that this person has the legal, I'm generally looking for that they have the legal right to work in this country, or currently in the country or time zone that I'm recruiting for. I might look at a quick summary to understand, what am I dealing with? Am I dealing with someone with 2 years experience, or 0 years experience, or 10 years or 20 years? I want to know roughly the level and seniority that of the person that I'm reviewing. People will then quickly skim for organization, title, and then the duration. If you have short tenures, it might be worthwhile explaining somewhere, maybe in the company summary, that maybe laid off as part of a 10% reduction in workforce for short tenures, because people do look towards tenure. A company summary, if maybe perhaps the organization isn't known to the individual hiring, and then they look for specific metrics. One of the first things I can spot in a that's very apparent is when a resume has no metrics. And if there are no metrics in a resume, it makes it very difficult for me to move that person forward and build a case for a hiring manager. And then I mentioned education, if it's if it's required for the role, such as engineering, medical, etc. Perhaps technical skills, if I'm looking for specific coding languages or manual tools that for say manufacturing, I might be looking for specific skills. So, but generally, I would say that those 8 things, which can be seen here, are skimmed for in a resume, and then if that looks like it's going to be a fit for the role, a recruiter might then spend a bit more time reading in detail.
Sam, thank you for that detailed response, and I'm sure our viewers are going to find that extremely informative. And I'm guessing by now they should know what needs to be included in their resumes. Now, there's something I want to pick your brain on. At one point, you mentioned Applicant Tracking Systems. I believe that's what ATS stands for. Now, I know that there's a lot of misconception around ATS, how it works. Do you think you could clarify? Do you think you could elaborate on what an ATS is and what it actually does?
Yeah, I'll do my best to. Right, but you're
Love it.
absolutely right. Applicant Tracking System, or ATS, that's exactly what it stands for. One of the key things I would like anyone watching this video to know first is they're called Applicant Tracking Systems, not Applicant Filtering Systems. ATS don't auto-reject or auto-filter candidates based on keywords. That is a big myth online. And I'm actually, if it's okay with you, I'll show you exactly what the inside of an applicant tracking system looks like.
Absolutely, Sam. Give us a rundown on what an ATS is. I think this might be my first time seeing what an ATS actually looks like. I'm pretty sure that might be the case for all our viewers. So take it away, Sam.
So what I've pulled up here is the inside of an applicant tracking system, and it's called Lever ATS. It's one of the top applicant tracking systems, at least in my opinion, available to recruiters. And what we're seeing here is on the left-hand side, just a quick overview, are the jobs that are assigned to me as a recruiter, and then the applicants. Now, this is a demo account, so there's no real candidate information in this, just to note. So usually what a recruiter will see is if I'm hiring for an account manager, these are the applicants, and then I've got 7 people in the interview process, okay? And basically what happens when a job seeker applies for a job, okay? I'm now going to go over to an external job advert. If I wanted to apply for the account manager job, this is what happens. So I'm going to attach a CV, a resume CV, and I'm just going to upload my own resume. What's happening now when it says analyzing resume is the applicant tracking system is trying to parse contact information to fill out these fields. It is not scanning for keywords to auto reject me. That's not what happens at this stage. So it's just pulling over the contact information. If the application has screening questions, I would answer those. And then submit application. Now, this is what a job seeker will go through. They will upload their resume, hit apply. Many individuals think that from here on, the applicant tracking system is auto-rejecting based on keywords. I would say that from at the time of the this recording, that is 99% untrue. What happens is the latest application gets added to the pile. And I would say about 95%, if not more, applicant tracking systems will just list them by date of application. Now, it might be at the bottom or it might be at the top, depending on what the layout is. But from the recruiters that I've spoken to, every single one of them has said it basically lists in order of applied. And when I click my own profile, what I get is the contact information. And this is why it's really important to have a simple, clean resume that is easily parsable, as in an applicant tracking system can scan the name, the location, the email, etc., because it's showing me the location, because this is an important bit of information for recruiters to know where a candidate is located. So that's why it's important to have it in your own resume. And this is why images, graphs, pictures don't work well in most applicant tracking systems, because oftentimes the information is not parsable. So that's just a side note. I will be able to see the screening questions if anyone's bothered to fill them out. but I will also always get access to the original file of the resume. It doesn't matter if you apply using Word or PDF because recruiters will always be able to download that file. I personally recommend PDF just because it keeps the formatting tight, but ultimately, if a recruiter wants to view that resume, they will always be able to access the file that was uploaded. So that's pretty much what happens when it comes to applying for a job. It just gets added to a pile by date of application, and recruiters can access the information when they need to.
Sam, thank you for sharing all of that information. Now, I'm guessing, based on what you've explained to us, the idea of keyword loading in resumes or just the idea of keywords, it probably doesn't matter as much. Can you elaborate on that, Sam?
I would say based on the maybe 6 or 7 applicant tracking systems that I've used, it's not really something that I would focus on when it comes to the resume. And another reason is there are some applicant tracking systems that will try to rank or rate or give a rating to a resume. Every recruiter that I've spoken to has said we don't even pay attention to that feature because it's a gimmick. And also, if for some reason I did fill my resume with keywords and somehow got a high ranking for, say, like a software engineer job because I threw in keywords, someone's going to take a look at my resume and think this person has never held a software engineer role. I'm not moving forward with that person. So keywords really don't matter. Many systems don't rank or rate despite much misinformation online. What matters is that you apply for a role that you are generally qualified for and that your resume is as impactful as it can be.
Sam, thank you for showing us what an ATS looks like. I think that clears up a lot of confusion that I have personally had, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this probably have had. Now, we've learned so far what a good resume looks like, what a good resume should include. We've discussed cover letters. We've even discussed at length what an ATS is and basically how it works. So someone has followed all of this advice, Sam. They've built the perfect resume, they've got the perfect cover letter. Now they're in a position where they're giving interviews. Are there any tips or any pieces of advice you can share with all our viewers as to, what they should say, what they shouldn't say in an interview?
Yeah, great question. I would say that, in the job seeking process, I break it down into 3 main stages. You want to land the interview, and you do that with your search tools like the resume. You want to, perform well in the interview by doing prep. And by doing that, you'll hopefully land the offer at which you want to learn to negotiate. When it comes to that middle section of interviewing well, obviously research is important. I would say one of the biggest tips that I would say would want to give is practicing either in front of the mirror or practicing speaking out loud. Your answers in particular are running through your resume, because I know my experience well, but I can still fumble in an interview if I've not practiced speaking about it. So one of my main tips for interviewing is speaking out loud and practicing, speaking in those terms, because you don't do that on a day-to-day basis. You don't talk about your resume and your experiences on a day-to-day basis. So it's really important to practice that.
Sam, thank you for sharing those tips. My next question is on the evolution of the job market since COVID. Now, I personally experienced this evolution since, the COVID pandemic, how the job market has evolved. Are there any pieces of advice, any tips you can share with our viewers that might help them navigate the current market?
Yeah, maybe just a couple of tips, because I wouldn't say I would maybe the leading expert on this, but here's what I've noticed works well and the approach that I take with my clients. Post-pandemic, we have a radically different economic situation in many different countries. But the general trend is that good, well-paying jobs that might help you build your career at the time of this recording are rare and desirable and of high value. And if a job is rare and it is desired and it is valuable, your experience, the way you position yourself, also needs to be rare, valuable, and desirable. And this is where your personal brand, how you show up in your resume, how you show up on your LinkedIn profile, when interviewing, all of that matters even more nowadays, because you're competing for something that is very scarce. So and that's just the hard math is there are more candidates looking for work right now than there are jobs available. And that's hard for people to digest. Many people will kind of freeze up or kind of go down a tough spiral. And I wish I could be there for all those individuals. But this is also the time, like, you kind of got to fight for this. You got to fight for these roles, and you got to do what you need to do in order to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. So just going to keep that in mind, is like, yes, jobs are rare and valuable. You need to be that same thing. When it comes to the current job market, the second tip that I want to give is a lot of people are really focusing on networking and applying to jobs, and they should absolutely continue doing that. What often gets forgotten about is networking with your existing contact base. Just because you worked with someone, just because you know someone, doesn't necessarily mean that you can always rely on them or immediately rely on them for a referral, or that they are thinking of you. My tip for individuals, if they've had a few years working experience, is give a LinkedIn recommendation to as many people as you can that you've previously worked with at former companies. It allows you to do something that is good for them, makes their profile looks good, might help them with their search. And also, it's a lot easier to ask for help from someone when you've maybe given something of value or done something for them first. So the key takeaway is your existing network is probably going to be a great referral source for many individuals in this market, but they also need a little bit of massaging. They also need a little bit of follow-up before you ask for their help.
Sam, thank you for your response on that. We're nearing the end of our interview now. So, my next question to you is basically talking about your personal services. You have a personal business that is completely remote. Can you share some insight into the kind of services you offer, and if any of our viewers were to approach you, how you could help them out?
Yeah, happy to. So you're right. Last year, or maybe a couple of years ago, I kind of built a 100% remote business. And I'd tried this quite a few times and fell down actually multiple times and just kind of kept trying. But I've kind of finally found something that works for me. And I did it all using LinkedIn. And it's something that I would recommend to other individuals, is kind of building and growing on some platform. LinkedIn's a great platform, in my opinion, for clients and also demonstrating some professional experience. When it comes to working with me, let me just pull something up. Well, first and foremost, in terms of the remote business, I do work with other creators or other individuals that are looking to maybe earn their first $100 online. Some individuals have never gone out and charged a client or feed or collected money online, or just in general. I do work with those individuals. The majority of my work, though, is working with individuals that are looking for work or looking to land more interviews. I do this through two main resume services, reviews, as well as live rewriting sessions where I write someone's resume for them while they watch. And that's actually what we did a few years ago. Was I
Yes.
worked with you one-on-one, very collaboratively, and wrote your resume with you while you watched, and also provided the information that I needed. So that's kind of what I do, is I do kind of shorter writing sessions rather than like big full packages, to make some of the services a little bit more accessible. I also offer salary negotiation consultations for individuals that are looking to negotiate thousands more, whether it's a new job offer or pitch for a raise from their current employer. So those are the main things that I'm working on just now.
Sam, thank you for showing us your website. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the description and on screen. And if our viewers need to reach out to you, then they know exactly where to look. This also brings us to our final question. Now, this is something that I have been dying to ask you. You have an extremely strong social presence. I think on LinkedIn alone, you just have 95,000 followers. Is there some advice, some tips you can give to me and our viewers on how one can build a strong social profile?
Yeah, for sure. Let me share again. Hopefully we can pull something. So in terms of again, at the time of this recording, because LinkedIn is always changing and online socials are always changing. But when it comes to LinkedIn, what's worked really well for me is finding a topic that you're genuinely passionate about and really, I would say, kind of doing those first 100 reps. I don't know if you heard of the concept of 100 reps, but the idea that anything that you do, the first 100 is going to be painful, whether it's weightlifting or YouTube videos, something, it's like it takes time, and many people will quit before it gets to that point where you're like, oh, I'm actually enjoying this, or I feel like I'm getting better. So growing on LinkedIn, posting something, writing something, connecting with someone, leaving out an impactful comment on another profile, all of these things contribute towards reps and contributes to the overall, I guess, elevation of a profile. So I think, first of all, it's just kind of like engaging with the platform, whether it's posting, commenting, liking, etc., but also being thoughtful about an approach and really trying to, whenever I post or write something on LinkedIn, I always think about like who or what value can a stranger extract from this. Yes, I'll respond and say thank you so much to people that comment on mine. That's fine. But when I see a post that I want to engage with, obviously I want it to be positive. I want it to elevate someone. And that's kind of what I've done on LinkedIn, is kind of take that approach.
Sam, thank you for giving us that detailed rundown of your LinkedIn profile. I really, really appreciate you taking us behind the scenes. Now, before we end this interview, is there anything else you'd like to share or say to our viewers that we have not covered so far?
I've always had this thing where I'm like, I wish I got started earlier. So if someone is out there and they are, not sure about whether growing their business, posting on LinkedIn, going for that, promotion or etc., just like make one move forward, one step in that direction. Any kind of momentum is still momentum, hopefully moving forward.
Sam, can I ask if you ever suffered from imposter syndrome when you first started out?
Oh gosh, still.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. I think the more that you learn, the more that you grow in your career, the more that you realize you don't know. And I still get a bit of like self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And I don't mind it. I've learned to actually kind of appreciate it, because I've now done over probably 500 personalized resume reviews and rewriting sessions, at least 500. And I feel good at them. I feel really confident, but there's always a little bit about me, sorry, the little voice in my head that says, you can do better. You can still improve. And that kind of self-doubt, or not self-doubt now, but or just kind of like that somewhat kind of in the realm of imposter syndrome, or kind of not feeling good enough, is actually what keeps me good enough. Because if I get complacent and think that I'm the best, or this is always going to be here, that's I think when it's going to slip. Whereas if I always take the approach of like, no, I got to show up and give my absolute best, go above and beyond, and prove myself by giving my absolute best in this review or this writing session, and I think that's what's going to keep things going for me. So I embrace that.
Wow, Sam, your response is blowing my mind. I did not expect that. I've always considered your charisma and confidence to be extremely infectious. So thank you so much for being transparent and humble with all of us. I really appreciate that. And Sam, I personally want to thank you for making the time to come on the show, answer all of my questions. I have learned quite a lot about resumes, cover letters, and applicant tracking systems, and I'm sure our viewers have learned quite a lot as well today. So thank you once again for taking the time, and I look forward to more discussions with you in the future.
Thank you again. Take care. Appreciate it.
And a big thank you to everyone watching this. I am going to leave the link to Sam's website in the description. I'll also put it up on screen, and I'll also leave a link to Sam's LinkedIn profile. So please go give him a follow. And if you liked this kind of content, please like, share, and follow me so I can make more videos like this. Thank you all for watching. I really hope you all found this informative, and I hope you all have an amazing day. Take care. Goodbye.